What if I told you that you could own a car for $5,000 to $10,000? Wouldn't that be great? All right. If you're watching this video, it's a little bit of a backstory with some new elements. All right, my name is William. All right, let's begin. So, there's this guy called Warner. Makes a YouTube channel with videos, whatever. And one day he came out with this video saying, hey, I want to make an affordable car. Unfortunately, that project stalled. But the beginnings, the ideas, the energy, that was really good. The project was discontinued. But why did this happen? I had a whole script kind of lined up, but I don't know where it is, and so I'll just break down the points right now. The first was the scope of the project, management, and the design of the vehicle itself. And maybe some other points too, I don't know. With the scope of the project, Warner saying early on, hey, I want this, I want that. Suddenly, what became information gathering had become like an engineering review, an engineering forum, right? Oh, maybe this, maybe that, maybe this. And early on, your scope creep got out of control. Or his scope creep, rather. It's not my project. When you have a scope, this is to set both hard limitations. He wanted, I think, a $10,000 vehicle. There was a lot of undecided things which allowed too much scope creep. Scopes are also for success criterion. What are you measuring against? What is both the goal that you can measure to, but also the hard limitations, such as the cost of manufacturing. So that early on was not established. The second is management of the project. So there's no clearly defined roles, right? There's a bunch of different people coming together from different experiences, and there was no really clear defined role, right? People were volunteering for this, volunteering for that, but there was no hard defined role for people to step in to that role that they might be good at. Instead, with management of the project, it was a bunch of people, and it was pretty much the loudest people, the naysayers, to say, no, don't do that, don't do this, we should do this, we should do that, and they were putting down everybody. That's kind of where I step in. And my experience personally was early on, I said, hey, we need to be doing this, this, and this to make us successful. People were naysaying that, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And I go live my life. So a month later, I come back because I happen to be on my phone, and all of a sudden, all the decisions that they're making was exactly what I had said a month earlier. So, okay, whatever. When you have both people with limited time, limited experience maybe, management of the project becomes very, very key. Even in the estimation of hours, if we go back a step to the scope, right? How much time will it take to design this vehicle, or the estimated time? Most new platform vehicles take about 50,000 hours to just design before you actually prototype it. And the prototypes, you're going to get a lot of stuff wrong too. So that's something to keep in mind. And so when you're dealing with people that, say for example, are working for free, that's going to be even tougher. The third is the design of the vehicle. I don't have any qualms against Warner. It's his project. I like the energy that he was giving, and I don't think there's anything wrong with his design, but it, to me, seemed like a limitation and kind of a marketable thing, right? He was wanting almost like a rat rod, a vintage 1930s-ish, 1940s-ish style of vehicle. It was a tandem style vehicle. There's nothing really wrong with that, but it also came with, again, when it's not a defined scope and suddenly it's a design review, design forum, and all of a sudden people are coming up with a lot more fabrication stuff than personally I would want to deal with. My personal experience anyways, I've designed and built vehicles, and that's kind of my next point. In the $5,000 to $10,000 range, you're not getting a Honda Civic, you're not getting a Toyota Camry, you're getting probably something that's very similar to a sandrail style of vehicle. Yes, it technically runs and drives. Maybe you can put a windshield on it, brake lights, but above $10,000, it's really not going to be too much different than that, because it also needs to be safe and things like that. So the third point is decision on how the vehicle should be is limited by its design. All of a sudden they're coming up with One particular example that I remember is the suspension. Instead of off-the-shelf components that are easily available, you can design around. They instead went with a torsion bar system where the torsion bars are going down the length of the vehicle, and that's controlling your front and controlling your rear independently maybe. On paper, that's a pretty nice design, but in the actual world, I would not make that my first choice because it requires understanding properties of materials. It's a lot more fabrication that if, let's say you're welding the ends, they're not going to have the same properties because they've been heated up and cooled, stuff like that. To me, seemed like a lot more fabrication, a lot more measuring that going to be difficult for the person that's actually building it or wants to own it. So where does that bring us? All right, I would like to try and continue the project. I know that it might not be perfect, but here's kind of the high level thing that I'm gonna pitch to you. Let me sell you on this. All right, here's what we got. I don't know if I'll have any kind of graphics anywhere, so we'll see. When we're defining the scope of the project, I've also included in here a little bit of time estimation, maybe. What's the overview? What kind of vehicle do we want to design? The kind of vehicle that I want to design is a 2-seater coupe. Specifically, again, that 30,000 foot view is I want a sheet metal cab and front that is, of course, plasma cut out of like 4x8 sheets, and that can actually be folded up and resemble your cab. And then your rear of the vehicle is going to be a tube frame chassis that's just bolted to the cab. And so the reason that will be that way and not, say for example, entirely made on flat sheets and bent and whatever is because I suspect that the powertrain is going to change or has to be flexible in such a way that accommodates these different powertrains. With some of the program constraints and design rules, it has to cost about $5,000 to $10,000 to manufacture. It has to, in my eyes, I want it to look a little bit retro, such as Nissan Mid-4 concept, your Subaru XT concept, your Toyota MR2, something that looks very, very similar to that in nature, and maybe be about the size of a Mazda Miata, right? A little fun car that you can also rely on as a daily driver. This vehicle as well is supposed to be as reliable as possible, and so it's going to use a reliable powertrain and will also use off-the-shelf or OTS components that range from Toyota and Honda to anything else that could, say for example, be designed around rather than incorporating it into a new design, right? So if we're using off-the-shelf components that save us design time and are easily purchasable, then I'm gonna do that. Architectural layout and modular strategies. All right, so we have 4 discrete modules. The first is the occupant cell. The second is the rear powertrain module. Third is our exterior body panels. And then the fourth is, of course, our mechanical, electrical, and interior systems. Me personally, I would much rather have this vehicle try and resemble a normal car rather than a sandrail as much as possible. And so there's that. Particular note on the structural philosophy is this is supposed to be cut and bent, but also having a low tooling investment, right? You're building very little tooling to be able to make this the way it is. It should be a flat pack that gets folded up. I've mentioned this many times now. The rear tube frame is made up of a bunch of different high load systems, right? We have the engine, the drivetrain, rear suspension, the exhaust. Requires minimal tooling. You can really get this down with like an angle grinder and a drill. It's also selected this way because the powertrain choice, at least for right now, is going to be a 6-cylinder Honda Goldwing engine, right? A motorcycle engine. You could also put a flat 4 Honda Goldwing engine in it, but again, tube frame chassis in the back at least, so you can accommodate different powertrain packages. If you want to go your Honda B16, you can, or if you want to stick with the original Honda Goldwing engine, you can also do that. A little bit of philosophy on the exterior body panels and visual design. If we're making it out of 4x8 sheets that can be bent and folded, I'm thinking that the exterior panels are going to be very simple in nature with the body lines and have, let's say, consistent edges that they can be bent upon. Say, for example, if your door panel, if the side profile is curved, well, you're probably bending a triangular profile, and then the panel will, of course, conform to that. You weld it, and then you paint it, and that's it. That's your only contour. Like any motor vehicle, it's gonna have electrical stuff, and so, this has to be able to have the instrumentation, has to have your complete, or as much as could be completed, interior to make it comfortable, to make it not seem like a project or a prototype or a one-off, but actually a completed vehicle. In summary, here's what we have so far. We have the cab fabrication, the rear frame fabrication, the sub-assembly installations, which is, putting everything together, the body panel fitting and manufacturing, and the final assembly. All of this requires semi-skilled labor, people that are hands-on, but of course it's not made to be complex like your Pagani or something, I don't know. This vehicle is meant to have a low fixture requirement, and so yes, there are some fixtures, I suspect there will be. This is, of course, in contrast with very highly specific features from, major production cars. Remember that thing I talked about scope? All right, here it is. Engineering and manufacturing staffing, right? I suspect that with the size of this vehicle, with the budget in mind, that it's going to be a total of 8 people on the engineering team. We're going to have a chief vehicle architect, 2 body and structure engineers, a powertrain integration engineer, a manufacturing engineer, or 2 maybe, I don't know, an electrical and compliance engineer. They might need help, just saying that first. Maybe 2 interior and ergonomic engineers. Entirely different a set of people for your manufacturing staff. So that includes 4 fabricators and welders, 4 assemblers, and then 2 quality and fitment engineers or maybe technicians. All right, so here's what I predict will be the requirements of labor hours. I suspect that this is going to be a 95 labor hour vehicle. 95 hours when everything's ready to be made and designed, is done. It's going to take 95 hours. It could take longer depending on your schedule. It could take shorter if you have a bunch more people. Here's the target of the manufacturing cost breakdown. If it's a $5,000 vehicle, that's what I'm budgeting for. All right. So we have the structure is going to cost $1,000, $1,050. Powertrain is going to cost $1,400. Suspension and brakes is going to cost $850. Wheels and tires is going to be $500. It might be trailer tires, maybe, I don't know. Interior, we're going to say $350. Electrical, it's another $300. And that brings us to a total of $4,850. A little bit of amortization or whatever, a little bit of flex to get us there, but that's, I suspect there's going to be more hidden costs, especially with off-the-shelf components. That'll get us there. With this in mind, we've put our scope together. Why are we putting our scope together, right? Well, this validates our cost assumptions, our manufacturing methods, our staffing, okay, management of the project, and the philosophy on how we should make things reliable. So I've made a Discord called Ohio Automobiles to maybe be able to design one of these vehicles. And I have a little bit of another project in mind, and that is, I'm going to call this Vehicle 1A. Right, if Vehicle 1A is your grassroots vehicle, a vehicle made for, let's say, the common Joe Schmo that wants something a little bit more custom, but also fun and reliable, this might be it. I've also thought about, what if we took this design of the vehicle and we made an actual vehicle that has, say for example, a $10,000 manufacturing cost, not just $5,000 manufacturing cost. And hear me out. When we look at manufacturing in, let's say, America, it's much more difficult to manufacture in USD, right? $1,000 is a lot of money. But what if we just include the design, okay? Design, whatever, takes 40,000 to 50,000 hours for a new platform vehicle. Well, when we really look at manufacturing, really look at bringing costs down, yes, that means you're going to be looking overseas. And so if we look at, China has, 6 yuan to $1, or Malaysia, which is 4 ringgits to $1, a $10,000 manufacturing cost suddenly becomes 40,000 ringgit, which is an amazing thing for manufacturing, right? If, let's say, this body panel or whatever costs $2,000, well, that's like 800 bucks. 2,000 divided by 4, that's like 500 bucks. Really something to think about if we want to, let's say, have a local American-made vehicle that, yes, uses the leverage of the USD dollar somewhere else, that you're not for critical stuff, but body panels or whatever, it's not really going to be that critical. Whereas your powertrain, what really gets you from house to work, that kind of stuff. And so that's what really matters for reliability. Body panels don't have to be so reliable on it, and so it'd be better to spend this money elsewhere that maximizes the buying power when it's you want to drive it and stuff. And so that's something to also think about. If we think about designing this and having all this stuff, it's like, well, this is an $80,000 car that needs to be manufactured. Well, you take that extrapolation of what it might cost and bring it elsewhere that could lower the cost. Of course, there's pros and cons to everything, and that's kind of the risk I'm willing to take. I don't know if anybody else would want to take that, but that's something to consider at least. Alrighty, see you there.